treaty changes for having a more flexible Europe in the interest of the UK, but also in the interest of the countries like Italy and like the Euro area countries, willing more integration because we share the same currency. So we can join our interest and we can have a very positive and common achievement of that.
Thank you. On the issue of Linton Crosby, this is a complete red herring, which is raised by the Labour Party because they're in political trouble, and I can't believe the BBC will fall for it. The decision not to go ahead for the time being with plain paper packaging for cigarettes is a decision taken by me with the Health Secretary for the very simple reason that there isn't yet sufficient evidence for it, and there's considerable legal uncertainty about it. If we get more evidence, and if we can reduce the legal uncertainty, then it may well be a good idea, and I'll very happily look at it again. The decision was made by me without any reference to any lobbyist or anyone else. This is complete nonsense from start to finish, put up, as I say, because the Labour Party, as demonstrated in the House of Commons today, is in, I think, some quite deep political trouble with their relationship with the trade unions.
Did you have a conversation?
As I said, I've never been lobbied by Linton Crosby about anything. Not in order to advise on any policies or policy areas he's been paid by the Conservative Party as a campaign advisor. Many political parties have paid people as campaign advisors in the past. As the Labour Party paid campaign advisors in the last government. Often they would be people who worked for other organisations as well, and I never heard them once mention at that time there was any need for them to talk about their other clients. Although, of course, with our lobbying report being published today, something Labour didn't do for 13 years, all third-party lobbying organisations would, of course, have to comply with a new law. So that is the actual news on lobbying today, that this government is taking action to sort out the issue of lobbying, something the last government spent 13 years not doing. I think we've got an Italian question.
Questo è per Presidente Letta in Italia, if I can. Volevo chiederle, in questi giorni qui a Londra lei ha rassicurato più volte sulla stabilità economica del Paese. Volevo sapere se ha avuto modo e in quali termini ha rassicurato anche sulla stabilità politica del Paese. And then for Prime Minister Cameron, you are insisting on the fact that UK, to remain in the EU, should see something more on growth and competitiveness. So how do you deal with that? And at the same time you ask, as you did, to reduce the EU budget. And another related question from Prime Minister Cameron. In the UK, you're giving asylum to a Kazakh dissident, which is Mr. Mukhtar Ablyazov. The wife and the daughter of Mr. Ablyazov were recently sent back from Italy to Kazakhstan, and this is at the center of a political scandal in Italy. So I was wondering if you had the opportunity to talk about this with Prime Minister Letta. Thank you.
Political stability, of course, is one of the main issues for us, and I'm sure that political stability is absolutely essential for bringing growth. Without political stability, it is impossible to have growth. This is why in my meetings this morning with the business community, yesterday at Chatham House and with the others too, I repeated that my first commitment is for growth, recovery, economic reforms, but without political stability it will be impossible. So my work is to boost political stability, and of course it will be my first mission also having the reform of politics. I told David also how important it was the fact that the Senate approved some days ago the first constitutional change of this long-term process that we are proposing to our country to arrive at the end of the process to a huge constitutional change. That will be very important, and of course I will ask to political parties, to my country, to continue on this path, because it is the correct path. The political stability is absolutely necessary. If not, it will be impossible to get recovery.
Thank you. On the issue that you asked me, it's an ongoing legal process, so I can't comment in any way about an individual case. As to your question about the UK seeking reform of the European Union, I think a very simple issue is that, as we were discussing over our meeting, 18 members of the 28 share the same currency, the others don't. The single currency is driving a process of change in the European Union, and we need to reform the European Union and make it flexible enough so that members of the single currency can make that currency work effectively and coordinate effectively, and those of us outside the single currency can find a comfortable position within the European Union. That needs change, that needs reform. And I think what Enrico said today is very significant, that in seeking that reform, in seeking change, that Britain does actually have a positive response from the German Chancellor, the Italian Prime Minister, the Swedish Prime Minister, the Dutch Prime Minister. I think there is growing understanding. Not all of us would agree about every change that is necessary, but there's growing understanding that change is needed to make this organisation work better for all of them. John Craig of Sky.
John Craig, Sky News. A question for the Italian Prime Minister first. Sir, could I also ask you about your comments about wishing the UK to stay on board the European process? How concerned are you about Mr Cameron's proposals for a referendum here in the UK on whether Britain should remain in the EU and the possibility that Britain might vote to leave the EU? And Mr Cameron, when the weather here is as hot as it is in Italy probably, and people are drinking a lot more, you'll recall saying last year, when beer is cheaper than water, it's just too easy for people to get drunk on cheap alcohol at home before they even set foot in the pub. So we are going to introduce a new minimum unit price. Why the U-turn on that today? Was that campaign advice from Mr Crosbie?
Let me take that question first. We've introduced today what is effectively a minimum price, because we're saying it's going to be illegal to sell alcohol below the rate of duty plus VAT. So supermarkets or shops deeply discounting alcohol will be made illegal. So that will, I think, be a positive step forward, and the Home Office have made a number of announcements linked to this, which I think will help. But on the issue of minimum unit pricing, it's actually quite a similar situation to the issue of plain paper packaging on cigarettes. There are good arguments for it. The argument has a lot of merits, which I myself have spoken about. But I think there are these two problems. There's a degree of legal uncertainty. It's been introduced in Scotland, but it's still under legal challenge. And there's also question marks about it, about the evidence behind it and how well it can work. And so when we have more evidence about how it can work, and we've got more certainty about the legal issues, I think it's an idea, as I said, that has merit, that I'll be happy to consider again. So in both these cases, decisions made very much by me as Prime Minister, consulting my cabinet colleagues, but in the end, the buck stops absolutely here. These are both decisions that I have made. I think they're the right ones because we need the evidence base, we need the legal certainty, and then we can move ahead. But until then, it makes sense not to move ahead. But the package we've got, I think, on alcohol pricing, as I say, banning the sale below VAT plus duty, I think is a good step forward.
Of course, I don't want to enter in a domestic debate, but I would say when the voters have the opportunity to say their decision about the future of the European Union, is always a good thing for Europe. So I personally have no fear about the referendum. It will be for sure something of positive for Europe and for the UK, because I repeat, no fear of that.
Thank you. Second question.
Good afternoon, Gavino Moretti, giornale Radio Rai. I have the same question for the President del Consiglio Letta and Prime Minister Cameron. If you found a common ground about enforcement, strength and competitiveness, and if it's possible to connect this issue to the fight against unemployment problem very strong in Europe too.
Yes, it is, because I think that single market, deepening the single market, is one of the main issues for having a more competitive Europe. Single market means having the opportunity to have higher and big dimension for the size of our companies. Single market means to boost digital agenda. Single market means also to tackle with the red tape problems, and of course we have in Italy a lot of problems on bureaucracy, and it's one of the main issues to cut bureaucracy and to cut bureaucratic costs. So yes, it's the main issue to boost competitiveness and to have and to fight against the unemployment. The only way is to have growth. Without growth, it's very difficult to win the fight against unemployment.
Well, I think you've heard it. I mean, I often go to European Council meetings and I say there is very strong support for the agenda of completing the single market in energy, in digital, in services. There's strong support for these competitiveness issues and a strong support for the EU-US trade agendas and other agendas. I sometimes think maybe people think that I'm inventing this mythical support. But you can see here today the Italian Prime Minister speaking very clearly about the single market, about competitiveness, about jobs, about growth that we'll get if we make these important structural reforms. And that is a joint Anglo-Italian agenda, one that we've decided from our different political traditions and different starting points we're going to work together on. We're going to draw in other allies across the European Union, and we hope to really push this agenda, including at the October and December European Council. So it's been an excellent meeting today. Very warm welcome to have you here, Enrico, and look forward to working with you in the months ahead.
Thank you.